The divers were not looking for survivors. They were sent down to recover bodies. The tugboat had been sitting on the ocean floor for almost 3 days, upside down, about 100 feet below the surface. Everyone believed the crew was dead. But then, inside the wreck in complete darkness, one of the divers saw something move. A hand. For a second, he thought it had to be a mistake, but the hand moved again. There was a man inside the sunken ship, and somehow, after nearly 60 hours underwater, he was still alive. His name was Harrison Okene. In May of 2013, Harrison was working as a cook on a tugboat called the Jascon 4 off the coast of Nigeria. It was not supposed to be a historic day. It was just another shift at sea. The tugboat was supporting oil operations in the Gulf of Guinea. Harrison was not a diver. He was not trained for underwater survival. He was not expecting anything unusual. Then, early in the morning, everything changed. The sea turned violent. A wave hit the vessel. The boat rolled. In moments, the Jascon 4 flipped over. The world turned upside down. Water rushed through the ship. Lights went out. Metal screamed. The rooms that had felt normal a few seconds earlier became traps. Harrison later said he could hear the voices of other crew members, shouting, panic, men trying to understand what had just happened. Then, one by one, the voices stopped. The boat sank to the bottom of the ocean, about 100 feet down. For most people on board, there was no escape. 11 crew members died. Harrison was the only one who found a pocket of air. But calling it safety would be wrong. It was not a rescue. It was a countdown. Imagine being inside a metal box at the bottom of the ocean. No light, no food, no fresh water, no way to call for help, no way to know if anyone is even looking for you. The ship is upside down. The floor is now the ceiling. The hallways are flooded. Every sound is distorted by water and steel. And around you, the air is slowly becoming poison. That was Harrison's reality. He had survived the sinking, but he was now trapped in a tiny air pocket inside the wreck. At first, the greatest danger probably felt obvious: drowning. But the longer he stayed alive, the more dangerous the air itself became. Every breath took oxygen from the pocket. Every exhale added carbon dioxide. Too much carbon dioxide can make you dizzy, confused, panicked, and eventually unconscious. Panic was another enemy. In total darkness, the mind starts filling in the blanks. Every noise becomes something. Every touch of cold water becomes a threat. Every minute feels longer than it should. Harrison had no clock. He did not know how much time had passed. He did not know if it was day or night. He only knew he was still breathing. And as long as he was breathing, he had one job. Do not panic. That sounds simple from the outside, but inside that wreck, panic could kill faster than the water. If he moved too much, he would use more oxygen. If he screamed, he would waste air. If he tried to swim out through the ship, he could lose the air pocket and drown in the dark. So he waited. He prayed. He listened. And the ocean pressed down on the ship from every direction. Above him, rescue teams eventually reached the wreck, but they were not searching for a living man. After nearly 3 days, the mission had changed. The divers were there to recover bodies. That detail is what makes this story so terrifying. By the time the divers entered the Jascon 4, nobody expected hope. They were moving through a tomb. The inside of a sunken ship is one of the most dangerous places a diver can enter. There are tight corridors, sharp metal edges, floating debris, cables, low visibility, and the constant risk of getting trapped. The divers moved slowly, using flashlights in water so dark that the beam only showed a small part of what was ahead. Then one diver reached a room. The camera moved through the wreck. The flashlight passed over walls, pipes, and shadows. And then, suddenly, a human hand appeared from the darkness. At first, the diver thought he was touching a body. Then, the hand grabbed him. Harrison Okene was alive. The diver shouted in surprise, because what he had found should not have been possible. A man had survived almost 60 hours on the ocean floor, in an air pocket inside an overturned tugboat. But finding him alive was only the beginning. They still had to get him out. At that depth, you cannot simply rush a person to the surface. The pressure underwater changes how gases behave inside the body. If a person comes up too fast, dissolved gases can form bubbles in the bloodstream. That can cause decompression sickness, which can be deadly. So even after Harrison was found, the rescue had to be careful. The divers gave him breathing equipment. They guided him out of the wreck. And then, he had to go through decompression before he could safely return to normal pressure. His survival was not just luck. Luck gave him the air pocket, but staying alive inside it required something else. He had to control himself in the dark. He had to resist the instinct to move, scream, swim, or fight the situation. He had to keep breathing slowly while the air got worse. He had to wait without knowing if waiting would save him. That is the part of the story that is hardest to imagine. Not the sinking, not even the darkness, but the uncertainty. If you are trapped underwater for 1 hour, you can tell yourself rescue might come. After 10 hours, you start wondering if anyone knows where you are. After 20 hours, your body is exhausted. After 40 hours, hope becomes almost impossible to hold. And Harrison stayed alive for almost 60. The Jascon 4 disaster killed 11 men. Harrison Okene was the only survivor. But his story did not end when he was pulled from the wreck. Years later, he returned to the sea in a way almost nobody would expect. He trained as a commercial diver. The man who had once been trapped at the bottom of the ocean went back underwater by choice. That does not make the story less frightening. It makes it stranger. Because for most people, surviving something like that would mean never wanting to see the ocean again. But for Harrison, the sea became part of his life in a new way. His story is often described as a miracle, and maybe it was, but it was also a chain of very specific conditions. He was in the right part of the ship. An air pocket formed. The pressure did not crush the space immediately. The divers came before the air became completely unbreathable. And when panic came for him, he did not let it win. That is why this survival story feels impossible. Because it was not one miracle, it was many small chances stacked on top of each other. A wave, a sinking ship, a trapped cook, a pocket of air, a rescue team expecting bodies, and a hand moving in the dark. Nearly 60 hours after the Jascon 4 sank, the ocean gave one man back.